we have a few more minutes till I think people are coming in. For my people that are arriving, I will say to you that it has been kind of exciting in some ways. I haven't seen a lot of the Olympics, but we've had Suni Lee, who lives within a couple miles of where I'm at, and to see her win the gold's pretty cool. I'm glad to see that a lot of our other athletes are addressing their own personal issues and saying, you know, hey, sometimes the pressure gets a little intense. I think it's time to take a break. I think that's important, especially in this time. I think it's hard to keep your energy levels up, I think, in this pandemic, but proud of all of you for being able to do that. Hello, Edison.
Hello, Dr. Coates. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good.
Hello, Edison.
Hi, Regina.
Polly, greetings.
Hello, the boundary wires and it still works.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, you do seem like you're in a rustic atmosphere.
Yeah, this cabin was made at the early 1900s. So it's
Awesome.
a really old one. Yeah, it's very cool. It's
Wow,
been nice.
it looks like it's log cabin.
Yeah, it's one of the old original log cabins from the era when they were building them up here. So it's an oldie.
You could look this up, but this is before the Civil War in Minnesota. I think it was like 1851, but don't quote me on the years, but it was definitely before the Civil War. In northern Minnesota, they had an earthquake that was over 7 on the Richter scale.
Really?
And the reason I'm mentioning that to you is many of the log cabins, and there weren't that many at that time, did not sustain very well because of the way they're structured. But yeah, but they're solid as a rock usually.
Yeah, this one, they built one of them and then they lived in it, and then I think the husband ended up leaving or something, and the woman stayed, and they ended up building a whole bunch more, and then a big lodge building. So it's got quite a history. There's
Wow.
there's like 8 cabins or 7 cabins, and then the big lodge building. Yeah, I got married up here, so we come back every year.
Oh, good. It's got nice meaning for you.
Yes, it does. My kids are up here too. We always come up for our family get together. So, but I wasn't sure up until last year. There wasn't any internet, so I wasn't sure how this was going to work. But it's actually looking good.
Yeah, it's amazing that usually you have good connectivity. Russ, I hope you're doing well. Russ, I see you too.
Yes, I'm doing well, thank you.
I got your note as well, Russ. When I receive it, I will send in what you requested.
Thank you.
I've got to tell all of you, it is just 6 o'clock. I'm going to say hello, Cece, Amy. It's good to see you. Philip, I saw Dave. Hey, Dave. Philip, are you coming in live from Liberia?
Sure, I am.
It's amazing. We can be talking to people in northern Minnesota or Liberia. It's amazing. Just amazing.
I know. It's good to be here this evening. Thank you for having me.
I'm glad, everybody. Thanks for checking in tonight. I'll just update you briefly. This is a brief meeting for you as a whole group. You know, for the most part, I think you're really staying on track. I can talk about some of the expectations you have in our final couple weeks here. I'm coming fresh off of visiting my wife's sister and her family out east. And so I was in New Jersey and then New York City. So I tell you what, I'm out of practice, but I was driving through the Bronx, Harlem, and Manhattan. And my sister-in-law was worried, but I wanted to give her a break because we went from the tip out in the Atlantic of Long Island, the big island outside in the Atlantic of New York, and I drove 4 hours from there back to New Jersey. And it's a pretty long trip. But once you get into the heart of the city, you got to have different driving skills. And in Minnesota, I know that is true as well, but New York drivers are a little bit different. So I'm like, I had to really kind of maneuver, but no one got hurt in the process. So I was proud of myself that way. But it's been a while since I've been out, at least driving in the East Coast atmosphere. I'll tell you that. So the other thing, as I was mentioning, it's great to see that, you know, by the way, I think, unless I have got the news wrong, but as of yesterday, the Chinese were ahead of us in gold medals. The US was leading in terms of total medals, but I had heard today, some of you could verify this, because the US slipped in with 3 gold, I think as of this final day, they surpassed the Chinese, I think, by 1 medal. So the US and Chinese were very, very neck and neck, along with Russia and Japan and others, but the US did really well. And Russ is in Texas, I see. Yes, all right. Russ, is it hot down there? Or is it pretty, maybe it's mild?
It's Texas, so it's hot.
Usually it is,
it's,
right? In the summer?
Yeah, it is dry and it's in 90s. Right now it's 93, but it feels like 100 something.
Yeah.
Well, I'm indoor, right? So I'm okay.
What part of Texas, Russ?
Dallas, Fort Worth.
Okay. Yeah, I head to San Antonio often, so a little further south. That's maybe even warmer at times, but anyway, I know I'm digressing.
I love San Antonio.
It's fun to just to connect with all of you. Well, I'll share my screen with you just to let you know what's happening. Before I do that, I just want to say, I'm very proud of you for keeping your energy alive. You really should be, if you're trying to monitor yourself, if you're losing track of the weeks. We are finishing, as we speak tonight, week 6. So officially on Monday, we start week 7. And of course, we have 8 weeks in this course. So thanks for continuing to do your discussion posts, your proposal pieces. I continue to give you feedback on that. It'll be short, usually to the point, to just keep you on track. Article critiques, you should have had feedback from me. Generally, they were really very good. So thanks for doing a great job on those, for the ones you picked. You'll find in week 7, now I will share the screen. And here it is. Okay, so you know it's coming up. So feel free here to ask any questions if you have any after I get this up here. But I think you can everybody see that okay? Just give me a nod, head nod. Yep, thank you. So as we said, we're ending week 6 tonight. So you should really be through all your week 6 material instead of in addition, making sure you have your quiz done by midnight tonight. So I leave you with that time if you're trying to catch up. But most of you finished a lot of this, so I'm grateful. As Monday approaches, you've got a discussion post as usual. Keep that Wednesday and Sunday deadlines in mind. Okay, so you do your original post, and then on Sunday, make sure that you've responded to at least 1 person, if not 2, by that Sunday of the following weekend coming up. Journal, you'll have like 1 more set of things to help you. And then what I'm hoping is that some of you have tried to do the practice final. I think that's a smart idea. I put that out in advance. Some of you have actually completed the final, which is great. But if you want to try the practice first, go for it. It's available, and then complete the final. And remember, the final's worth points. The practice is not, but the practice lets you know what you missed. So it's good for you, especially when you're in the at your own home or workplace, that you can try it out and not have that time constraint on you. Okay. But let's keep this in mind. So I want to just talk to you so that you can, get yourself ready. You have a little time to do this, But realize, so you will take all of your proposal weeks and try to pull all that together, and you have a presentation due by August 19th. So we are at August 8th today. So you have a little time, but the sooner the better. But the point is, you put your PowerPoint in the discussion board section by August 19th. And you notice it says for peer review. So what you can do is when you put your PowerPoint out there, and again, you know, we said, and I'm going to say 9 to 12 slides, right? You know, I can vary by a slide or two. You know, it's quality over, you know, quantity here. But by putting it out by the 19th, you can get review from hopefully at least 2 of your colleagues. So if you find a colleague that doesn't have any comments on theirs, please jump in. And maybe you want to talk to somebody you haven't before, but read through what they've done and give them a little feedback, constructive feedback, but be kind. And the point of doing that, it's good practice for you. You might have had it in other courses where you have some peer review, but frankly, anytime I submit a journal article, it's usually peer reviewed by 2 people at least, and they give you feedback. Sometimes, you know, they let me have it and say, this article isn't what we expected. Others say, oh, you've done a great job, but you could change this and this, right? But it's helpful, and it's good to have other eyes on your work. But that's by August 19th, which you'll note is a Thursday. And then you have a couple days, make that 3 days if you may, because on the 22nd, that's when our term ends. So that's when you'll see in the assignment section, you can submit your presentation and your exec summary. And remember, the exec summary is just a couple pages, but it follows that rubric we have that you'll also see that's listed in that assignment section. Okay, so our final class day is the 22nd. Now, I don't want to give you extensions on this, so stay on track. You're going to have to be able to meet those deadlines. I know some of you, you know, you go through a few crises. We all have. And I want to make sure that you stay on track. So that's that final day. But if you decide you want to get your presentation out for peer review here before August 19th, I'm not stopping you. I know some of you like to do things right off the bat. And if you've got it done and it's well done, feel free to put it in earlier. But everybody should be in by August 19th so that you have a couple days, if not 3, I would say 2 days, because you have the 20th and 21st to really get that feedback, but you want to have everything submitted by the 22nd. So do your best to get those reviews in the next couple days after the 19th, so you can turn everything in on the 22nd. So with that, I can share this screen again, but let me come back and stop the share so I can talk with you and see if you have any questions. So again, check in. So this is a time for questions.
Regina here. August the 19th, is that just for the presentation, for the peer review, not so much the executive summary?
Yes, that's a very good question. Thanks, Regina. Yes, it's just for your presentation. The executive summary you submit to me individually along with your presentation. Your final one will come in with that exec summary, and that's in the assignment section. You're right. By the 19th, just the PowerPoint presentation that you plan to submit. But you might want to get some feedback from your colleagues, or maybe they'll just say, excellent job, submit it to Dr. K as is, right? But it's a good time that maybe you missed something, and they might say, wow, I really appreciate how you did the lit review section, or, you know, how did you come up with your population or sample? Those kinds of questions are helpful to get some other eyes. Does that help?
Yes, understood. Understood. That's perfect.
Anybody else? Katie, I want to make sure we got connectivity with you. I didn't get to say hello. I hope you are well. Okay, good, good. I take it all of you can hear what I'm saying. All is good, I think, on this end. In terms of people getting their work in, do yourself a favor. You know, I noticed on the article critiques, thanks for, you know, checking for sentence usage and spelling and so on. That's really important just as professionals. But sometimes you may miss, if there's an overabundance of that, you're not taking as much pride in your work. But I was impressed on that end. But you may want to read your work through to make sure that it makes sense. It may be spell checked fine, but it's a good reason to have peer review. You know, get a buddy or two, even down the road, that maybe you can share your work when you're doing your, let's say, your dissertation, and maybe you can share yours with them, and maybe set up an agreement that you'll help read each other's through before you get any kind of like professional editing done. It's good to build those connections while you can. All right, any other questions on that? Okay, let me share my screen again. So I told you it would be brief, but I wanna get this for you. So just trying to keep you going. The best I can do right now is keep you motivated. I think you're picking up the material. So I will just say this to you, you know, I think for all of us, I expect to pass through this world but once. Any good thing, therefore, that I can do, or any kindness that I can show to any fellow creature, let me do it now. Let me not defer or neglect it, for I shall not pass this way again. Stephen Grillette said that, and I send that out, positive vibes for all of you. And Regina Brett says to us, you know, get out every day. Miracles are waiting everywhere. And my last thing for you, it's a visual, but there are some days I say, oh, I can't do this. But you know what? Sometimes if you just reframe, maybe you have to take a little piece off that attitude you have, and you can show that instead of you can't do it, I can do it. All right. So with that, that's all I have for you. I will stay on the line for any of you that have questions. Now, in particular, if you have specific questions on your proposal, or if you said, oh, Dr. K, I went through each week, but now I've decided I want to go a different direction, you know, we can talk about that. But, you know, that's possible. Sometimes you do reach some other, a new epiphany or a new conclusion on what you want to do. But in general, the idea was to have you build it week by week, so you're not struggling at the end to throw it all together. That was my intention. Yes, I agree, Carlos. That's the way you did that is exactly what I meant to convey.
I do my best.
Okay, anybody have anything? Well, if I see you disappear, if I do see you disappear, that means you're understanding what we're doing. If not, I'm gonna hang on the line, and you know, might be a small group, but if you have individual concerns, I'll stay as long as you need. All right. Have a good week.
Thank you.
August is here.
Have a question, Dr. Coates.
Please.
Just about the executive summary. I'm not sure whether, should I do like headings on it, or should I just do something that flows?
Yeah, that's a great way, Edison. That's good for me as the reader. You know, you'll see in the rubric section, you know, I'll say, what is your question? Was there any literature review done? You know, what is your population sample? What's your instrument? Yeah, you can literally, you know, use those as bullet points, but I'm looking at no more than a couple pages.
Mm-hmm.
So it's somewhat succinct. That's an exec summary, right? But the PowerPoint, you can enhance it and bring it to life, you know, with your own creativity and your own style. Does that make sense? But it's pretty much, you'll see that exec summary is all these pieces every week. I ask you just a few pieces from that exec summary each week. I have you tackle those individually. So if you can go back the other weeks, pull them all together, and then, you know, I would try not to just cut and paste, you know, read it through and make sure it makes sense, but you've got all the elements there. Does that make sense?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Polly.
With the exec summary, going off of what Edison was saying, is it all right to switch the order around a bit? Because I like to put that literature review first to introduce what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Rather than jumping into this is my population. It's, to me, it makes more sense to use the literature to introduce your study. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
no, that's fine. As long as it's got a header on it, Polly, that's great. And in fact, I'm glad you asked that anyway, Polly, because, you know, when you, I'm not necessarily saying that for the comp exam, although you do have 2 lit reviews you do for question 1 in the comp exam. But in the dissertation, you know, we suggest, just as a faculty and a department, that the literature review is what you do first. In a sense, it's nice to have a question, but that question could be modified based on the literature review, right? So I understand your logic on that. That is just fine.
Okay. Then I had one other question. You don't have anything about validity and reliability on your little pieces. Do you just not want us to have to deal with that this time, or?
Well, that's a good question. Like if you have an instrument, in general, you know, we've discussed, you know, in the residency, the idea if you have an instrument, it would be good to have established validity and reliability. So if you discuss that, thank you, that gets you extra points. But it's not as important here that this class to have it. But yeah, and I think I've got a few people. I'm gonna mute you if I sorry for those. I think I've got some static here so I can hear. I think we're good. Hopefully you could hear that all right. My point is that the validity and reliability is an important piece for any instrument you choose, but it's not essential that you go into depth on that. But thanks for asking.
Yeah, that helps. I know that I'll probably have to create that one instrument that I doubt I'll be able to find one. I might be able to adapt one. So I just wondered if you wanted to know how I would do that.
No, I appreciate it. And if you do create your own, you know, do you know there are 2 ways to establish, well, there are many ways, but at least 2 ways to establish validity. Can somebody tell me that?
Content validity, construct validity, and there's another
Criterion.
criterion. Is that what it was, Edison?
Yes.
That's right. Those are some way. And practically speaking, if you wanted to establish, those are definitely the theoretical constructs that are important with validity. But what might be one way, if you have an instrument, to establish that it has content validity?
So
maybe do a pilot test.
Say again.
Maybe do a pilot test or.
Very good. Pilot test.
Isn't Cronbach Alpha also another way to see that all the questions that you have are actually going with the construct that you're kind of trying to measure?
Very good. Like I look a lot at internal consistency on questions. Good. But I'm even saying more basic to that you're on the right track with pilot study.
Expert panel?
There you go. You knew it. Yeah, expert panel. I mean, you know, not just pulling anybody off the street to look at your instrument. That can be helpful too, you know, part of the pilot study. But if you can get people that know the field, like if it's in psychology and you're using a psychological instrument, or if it's a transformational leadership, transactional leadership instrument, which there are plenty of those out there, you might want to talk to some leaders in those fields that might be able to say, you could have included this, or this wasn't very clear. So you're right. Get a panel of experts. There's another good way to make sure that you've got the right questions. Does anybody, I'm just trying to push you a little further on this.
Operationalize the construct and then make sure that you have questions for each aspect of that construct from the literature.
There you go. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and in addition to what you just said, Polly, is that you could just essentially what you did in the lit review may emanate or bring forward questions that you didn't consider at first when you're building that instrument. So you have validity to back it up and say, huh, my lit review ties in with my actual questions. So great. Those are great ways for validity.
Okay.
The reliability, I know most of you know that it's, can you get similar results? They're not exact, but, or can you replicate things over and over again, if that's possible. But that validity is the key if you're going to build your own instrument. I do suggest some of you say, hey, there's nothing out there for what I'm going to do in my study. Like you probably look, I know you've looked, Polly, but if you can find something that has established validity and reliability, you save yourself some headaches. If you can, and most things, by the way, the library, maybe you picked that up in the comp exam workshop. The library has some established instruments, but you're right, they may not all fit for what you want to do. That's a long-winded answer. I hope that helps.
No, that helps. That's kind of where I was heading with it. And luckily I did find another instrument for the other part that does have all of that done already. So that's nice.
That is nice.
One last question. I'm sorry, I'm taking everybody's time. If you're doing a pre-test, I was going to use a paired t-test because I was going to do a pre and a post, but now I added a mid-year in. Can you still use the paired t-test or do I have to do a NOVA?
Oh, well, let me make sure I'm understanding you. So you gave a pre-test, and the first, before we talk about mid-year, the pre and post have similar types of questions?
It's the same instrument, but using different passages. So it's a reading assessment, but it comes, what's already been tested for validity and reliability, as I finally got it. And it comes with different passages to measure the same things at the same level. So you can use different passages each time, but you're still using the same instrument.
I see.
So that way there's no test practice thing going on there. But if I'm looking to see if there's growth pre-year, mid-year, end year, can I still do it with a paired t-test?
Yes, although, so you got two options. One thing I would suggest is that you would, you'd analyze pre versus post, forget the formative one in the middle for a moment, and see if there was, ultimate progress for that time period, if it's a year or whatever time period, right?
Yep.
But you can still you could do a pre to post test from beginning to mid-year.
That's what I was thinking.
And then from mid-year to the end of the year. So you're running, in that case, well, you're really running two of them for the mid-year, and then you could go pre to post for the whole year, let's say. Yeah,
Okay.
you
That's what I was.
Still use a paired T, you're right.
Okay, that's what I was thinking, is because it just gives me that extra little test in there to kind of see if there's a real pattern going on.
That's great that you're going to that depth. That's great.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you.
Okay. Good questions. Amy, Edison, Regina, Katie, and Philip, anything else you need?
Yes, I think Polly asked us part of our questions. I was thinking of delimitation, because we didn't mention delimitation in our the guideline. I was wondering,
Right.
and maybe the same thing happened to reliability and validity. So it's not the focus of this course, but it's something.
Right.
Yeah.
And you've had some of that already, but we've discussed, what limitations and delimitations are, right? So, where they really, so this is a proposal. So you can put, limitations in up front, but what you find is after you collect the data for like chapter 4 and 5 of a dissertation, then you find out, oh, I had limitations that were out of my control, but I have delimitations which were, they were in my control. Like maybe I limited it to Southeastern Minnesota nurses that are female, right? I put a delimitation on my study. Those things you can discuss at the end of your data collection and results that you found. So no, that's a good point, Amy. But a lot of the limitations and delimitations where it really becomes critical is after the proposal. But you can put it up front as well. You'll see for, okay, what are the limitations of my study going into this before I do any data collection? So if you find you have time to include that, please do. But it isn't one thing that I asked explicitly. You're right.
Thank you, Dr. K. And thank
No
you for the
worries.
positive energy. And I think all my cohort members will appreciate the positive life reflections you shared every week.
Oh, that's good. Well, I should probably be sharing more statistical models with you, but we had enough of those in the residency. And I think with the quizzes, the discussion posts, the proposal building, you get enough of that, I hope. You know, if you're doing your readings, you're doctoral students, so I do trust you in that regard. And it pops up on the quizzes if you don't. So no, thanks for letting me know, Amy. It's a choice though to stay positive, right? Especially when there's a lot of negative influences and things that happen to us each day. Lots of stories I could tell you, as you know, but I'll save that for another day.
Yeah, I read the books in your books. I
Oh,
read the
good.
stories in your books.
Not a national bestseller, but you know.
My son enjoyed reading it as well.
Well, good.
Yeah,
That's
really
good.
good.
Appreciate the feedback.
Yeah.
We'll get you, any of you others that need a book, motivational, inspirational book, I'd be glad to get you one. It's not a problem. So with that, let's see, I'm looking at some of have been snack. Dave did say, he said, it would have been better if we had snacks. Yeah, I agree. I know. I like that part about being in person. There are snacks, you know, especially on ground. We're supposed to go on ground in the fall, and I think I'm going to be. I'll be wearing a mask in class. That's currently St. Mary's policy, right? As many institutions are doing. But I have my worries because I have some students that I think they may say, even though it's offered on ground, you're in the blended program, but even though it's offered on ground, they may say, I can't come in due to health or what have you. It's going to be difficult. So we're trying to keep the two modalities alive, right? Blended, your program, and on ground. So Dr. McClure, I think that's not probably giving him a headache. Edison, Philip, Regina, anything else?
Yeah.
Philip, yes.
Yeah, that's okay. Like I said in my, proposal, I think I'm having some concerns with my instrument, but I will spend some time on it tomorrow and will certainly reach out to you if anything new comes up.
That's good. And remember, it's a proposal. So it's nice if you have an instrument in mind, but again, you don't have to collect data, right? You don't have to do that. It's a proposal. Just like when you do your dissertation, you got to get approval from your committee and the IRB. So you're not supposed to collect data, but it is nice if you have an instrument in mind. So maybe you might have 2 or 3, Philip. And then, you may not know exactly which one you're going to use, but, you could discuss it, with some of your peers here and then also with me.
Okay, sounds good.
It's good. It's a good point, though.
Okay, thank you.
Regina, quick question. I'm still trying to process the PowerPoint. I'm actually finished it, but I'm just kind of worried about how much information I have there. I mean, I kind of have my points in line. But I'm just kind of worried about the size of the PowerPoint.
Well, Yeah, I mean, like we were saying, keep your thoughts condensed here, to 9 to 12. I'm trying to get you in the practice. So I'll tell you, I sit through many dissertation defenses. And to give you an idea, sometimes less is better. So in a dissertation defense, it depends on what your chair will suggest in your committee, but your chair will usually tell you, get prepared to do like a 45-minute to an hour presentation. How many slides is that? Well, I'm going to say 30 to 40 slides, but everybody's style is a little different. Now, I've done this. I don't recommend this. It's not good practice. Taking, cut and paste, throw it all on one slide, you lose people, right? Now, that's why I give you that chance to do the exact summary, even though it's 2 pages. But, you've written papers for many of your courses that have been lengthy. That's where you can go into the detail. But PowerPoint is a time for you to shine, with what you know. I'm not having you present these to the whole group, in person like this. In this case, you're just posting them to the discussion board. But you want to keep your ideas condensed so that you're not literally reading from the slides. That's not a good habit to have, especially in your defense. It's your baby, it's your work, and when you actually defend your work, you want to know what's on those slides, right? So you don't want to be reading them verbatim. No. But I know you realize that. You guys are all professionals. But I hear you. I'd say try to keep it to around no more than 12 slides, Regina and everybody, for at least for this class. Make sense?
Okay.
Now, if you're going to tell me you have like 30 slides already, I'm sorry. I don't know if you have that many. I don't think you have that. Yeah.
No,
You should enjoy your summer. No, that's right.
Right, exactly. Well, thank you so much. That's all I had. Bye-bye.
Okay, I'll hang on if any of you have individual concerns. Yep, it's good to see you. Thanks for being here. Send me a note if you need anything else. Welcome.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, my friend.